Welcome to the People Productivity channel, a place where you can become a better you. This channel is actually dedicated to helping individuals, companies, teams, and organizations fully unlock the human potential that they have. In each one of our interviews, we actually share practices that you can begin applying to perform better right now. And today, I'm really excited to introduce an individual that's a friend, partner, and a lifetime entrepreneur, Jack Killion. Jack has had an amazing life. Most people talk about being an entrepreneur. Jack actually lived the life of an entrepreneur. He's been involved in many different businesses, and he actually wrote the book on networking. And we're going to spend some time later in the episode talking about networking and what are the things you should do to become a better networker. How can you grow your own network? And what could growing your own network do for you? What are the techniques you could use to actually do that? So before we get into that, let me let Jack introduce himself, because Jack's led an interesting life, been in a lot of different businesses, including horse racing. Hey, Jack, why don't you share a little bit about yourself with our audience?
Great, Frank. Thanks for the opportunity to share some thinking.
Mm-hmm.
I've been on my own. I haven't had a paycheck from another company in close to 50 years. The last corporate job I had was with McKinsey & Company, one of the world's leading management consulting firms. And before that, I worked in England for a public high-tech UK company. So I've been on my own for 50 years. During that period of time, I've started 10 different businesses from scratch. Plus I bought a broken down manufacturing company and I ran that. I usually do multiple companies at the same time. So I've been in venture capital. That was the first business I started, helping to raise money for small companies and help develop small companies. That led into me and two partners starting the first national country music magazine in America. I then went on to, with my wife partner, to go into the breeding and training of racehorses for 20 years. We live on a farm, which is where we did all that. For the last 18 years, up until the end of 18, I was running an investment fund that invested in hedge funds. It was a fund of funds. I've also been involved in real estate development in Florida, launched a couple of other magazines, one in the wireless mobile communication space. So I've done a lot of different things. And one of the key common threads that runs through all of them is the success I've achieved based on the developing the network of key contacts that were instrumental in being successful in each of those different types of businesses. Prior to starting my business career, I had a great educational background. I went to Yale, MIT, and took additional courses at the Harvard Business School. And back then, I was totally clueless about how important it is to network with people and build sustainable relationships. So dumb me, I never stayed in touch with any of the great people I met
Yeah.
at three of the great universities in the world.
You know what?
Because,
That is true of so many people, right? We fail
oh,
to stay in touch.
totally. And, I can't imagine how different my life would have been if I had just stayed in touch with some of the people who went on to become presidents of countries and presidents of major corporations. But back then, nobody was really talking about networking. It wasn't as easy to do as it is now. And I was just totally clueless. And I was clueless through the first early stages of my career until I
Yeah.
actually went off on my own, and I had to learn to develop relationships. Otherwise, I wasn't going to be successful in these ventures.
So,
And
Jack, did you have an epiphany at some point saying, wow, this is really something I could master? Um, Tell us a little bit about that, because you obviously did master it and you built a lot of practices. Was there a moment where you said, this is actually, something that I can build into a formal process of practice?
I didn't really think of it like that. I didn't appreciate the skills I was developing until I was
Uh-huh.
deep into this entrepreneurial career.
Okay.
Sort of woke up one morning and said, I'm really good at this. And I don't know many other people who are good at this. So one of the more recent things I started in the last 5 years was coaching other people to develop their networking skills. So I've coached everywhere from high school kids up to board members on major corporations, in major companies as well. So this is a skill that I think people are not being taught. I think it equates to being as important as reading, writing, and arithmetic. I think if you don't have this skill, you're really shortchanging yourself and your career. But equally important, I think you're shortchanging your family and the people that you care about, because you can create all kinds of opportunities for your family and the people you love and care about through the relationships that you've developed. And I've done a lot of things for my family that would not have been possible if I didn't have a great network of people that can make things happen. So I think this is a skill that should be taught in every school and in every company, and it's not. And it's a big gap in our people development area.
Yeah, and it's so funny you say that because companies are always looking for their people. It's certainly the ones who are, in sales, dealing with the public, maybe they're in IT, going out to build better networks because the world is happening out there.
Right.
And people really need to be in touch with what's happening out there because things are moving so fast and everybody knows everybody in some way, right? We're all connected
Yep.
by a certain number of degrees of separation. I mean, given the size of your network, you're probably 3 degrees from everybody.
Yep.
Some people are
I
six
have a
degrees from
really
everybody.
vast network on a global basis. I'm astounded at how many people find me from around the world. And,
Yeah.
that's just such a powerful personal resource. I literally think I could add value to almost everybody's career and life just by reaching out to the people that I'm comfortable working with. It's amazing. It's an amazing sense of strength.
Yeah, it's amazing. And you've not only connected with people, you've managed to build relationships. And you wrote a book, Network All the Time, Everywhere with Everyone, that I think everybody should pick up. Maybe you want to just briefly mention something about the book, because I think after this interview, people will be interested in certainly learning more, Jack.
Yeah,
And
my book is on Amazon. It's called Network All the Time, Everywhere with Everybody. I wrote it a couple of years ago, and it's been very well received. There's very good reviews on Amazon. I got a lot of terrific people uh, providing testimonials for the book, in the book. Uh, Companies are buying in volume, major accounting firms, major banks, major corporate organizations. They buy it for their teams of various people. So it took me about a year and a half to write it, and I'd due for an update because every day I continue to get better at this.
mhm.
I just learn little interesting things. For example, one of the latest epiphanies I had is I think everybody should start every day by reaching out on the internet to 5 people. Look at LinkedIn posts that are of interest to you and reach out and say something to that person. Or look at your email database and send a note saying, hey, I've been thinking about you. Let's get together for coffee. So just the simple concept of communicating with 5 people every day on the internet just continues to stir the pot. And a lot of people think networking is basically going to events and handing out business cards. That is such a tiny part of this systematic approach that I've developed to networking. That is just a tiny part of things.
Yeah.
In fact, I don't even like to go to events and hand out business cards. If I think there's a opportunity to network with a group of people, I'd much rather organize my own event or my own group. Um, Everybody has to develop their own
Mhm.
techniques for doing this. The way I do it wouldn't work for you, Frank, because our
Yep.
schedules are different, our commitments are different.
Well, why
So
don't
the
you
way,
share what you do, Jack? Just because you do so many different things, obviously, and you're out in companies training people how to network.
right,
You're going to, you're involved in so many different businesses and other things already anyway. But you, because you're an entrepreneur, you have a somewhat flexible schedule
Right.
too. So, can you share a little bit about what you do? What could people be doing?
One of the things I try to do, I try to have a breakfast meeting at least 6 days a week. I pick breakfast because it doesn't take a lot of time. Almost everybody is willing to meet over breakfast. It's inexpensive. If two of us go out for breakfast, we're talking about a $20 tab. It's not like going out to dinner at a steakhouse in
Hmm.
New York City. And if if people could spend an hour a day, 6 days a week, just on their careers or on their life, uh,
What a
you would be
difference!
astounded at how much leverage that creates. And people like to do it, and people feel flattered that you're inviting them to do something like that. So I think my lifestyle, my work style makes it easy for me to do breakfast meetings. If I worked in New York City every day, that would be tough because I would have a 2 hour commute. So
Yeah,
if I was living in New Jersey and commuting in New York, I'd have to find another time during the day to do that. So you have to fit this into your own lifestyle and your own work commitments. Um, I think a couple of other things that are important. I think most people do a poor job of following up with people after they either talk to them or meet with them. And I have a 24-hour rule. I really recommend strongly that after you have a reaction or a meeting with somebody, that you send them a thank you note within 24 hours.
hmm,
If you wait 48 hours, it becomes less significant to the other person. If you wait a week, in a lot of cases, they even forgot about what you met about. So I think it's really important to get back to people within 24 hours.
yeah. Timeliness matters. I agree with you, right? Because that
Yep.
meant they were important enough that you were thinking about them and said thank you.
Yep. I have another rule. It's the Jack Killion 1 year rule, because I think all significant things basically take at least a year to happen. In
Hmm.
every business I've been in, that's been true. So from the time I first meet somebody for the first time, I assume it's going to take a year before, whatever relationship we develop is going to turn into something really significant. So you can't rush this stuff. That's why you have to be doing it consistently. And a lot of people I know don't do a good job of spotting opportunities. I think if you really want to succeed by leveraging your network, you got to be able to spot opportunities in the conversations or from something somebody writes to you. So coaching yourself to spot opportunities is a skill that goes with this networking capability. Um, I think people should be using social media. The
Oh,
one I use
if they're
most
not,
success.
what a mistake, right? It's
Yeah,
so
I
powerful.
use LinkedIn mostly, and I tend to accept connections from almost everybody who reaches out to me cold.
Me too.
Uh, I do a little, I review who they are, make certain it's really legitimate, and then I accept them and I get back to them and I said, thanks a lot for reaching out. I appreciate the interest, but where do you see the synergies? How can we help each other? How can I add value to you? So I've made all kinds of great connections on a global basis just by doing that. And I think most people don't pay enough attention to their LinkedIn profile. And when I look at people's profiles, I see 200 connections, 300 connections. I think you got to go way beyond that. So I think one goal people should have is to add 10 to 20 new connections a week on their LinkedIn profile. I
Hmm.
think that really leverages your capabilities.
Yeah, and it becomes a very big network very quickly that you can communicate out to.
Right, right.
And I think you're a
Um,
great communicator, Jack. You're always doing stuff quickly, trying to stay in touch with people. Maybe you could share some of your communication habits and how you keep these connections warm.
is that better with the
A
sorry
little
for the
better.
sun
Yeah, it
light?
looks like the sun's coming in.
Yeah. Uh, I try to stay in touch with people, for a long period of time. For example, yesterday I had a breakfast meeting with somebody I first met with 5 years ago, and I've been keeping him up to date generally on some of the things I'm doing, and he's interested. Excuse me for moving around here,
Yeah.
trying
Wait.
to find a good
Hey,
spot.
Jack, this is actually, in a way, this is really funny. right? Because you've got this like, it's not just a sunbeam. It looks like this enormous ray of sunlight is coming in right where you are. So the sun oddly has moved into this entire thing, right? We started off and
Right,
you were out of the sun and now suddenly it's coming in. It's almost like it's after you,
right,
right?
right. And if I go on long enough, the sun will have already set.
It'll be gone. Yeah.
It'll be
Yeah.
gone.
Too funny.
So, I had breakfast with a contact yesterday that I met 5 or 6 years ago, and I've been generally keeping them up to date every few months, maybe every 6 months, with an update on what I'm currently doing. And he reached out to me because he's now in a situation where he thinks the organizations he's with now can work with one of the companies in which I'm involved. So, you have to just methodically massage your contacts. I also think it's a good thing to post on LinkedIn. I don't do it enough, but I post periodically on LinkedIn, and I'm surprised at the people who notice
Me
the
too.
things that I post. And one of the things that I do is if somebody checks off that they like my post, I look them up. Half of them I know, half of them I don't know, and I figure if they're interested enough to indicate they like my post, I should be polite enough to get back to them and thank them for that, and see if there's anything we can be doing together. And that creates a whole series of things. So just frequently staying in touch with people. Um, I'm not big on going to other people's events. Like I mentioned, I'd rather organize my own events. And I'm not a big joiner of networking groups. I don't belong to the Rotary Club or BNI or any of these
Mhm.
other, you know, networking organizations. I'd much rather put together my own networking group. So, for example, I graduated from the MIT Business School, and I have put together in New Jersey a networking group just of MIT Business School graduates who live and
Fabulous idea.
work uh, in New Jersey. And we meet, 5 or 6 times a year. We have a meeting scheduled next week, and it's very informal. No bylaws, no dues, no officers. I just bring 30 or 35 people together, and we all sit around a table and share an update on what we're all doing, and we're all looking for ways to add value to each other's life. So I've seen a lot of opportunities and really important relationships come out of something like that. So I encourage people when I meet them to think about forming similar organizations wherever they live for graduates of the school that they went to. I think
Yeah.
it's a powerful thing, and the schools love it because it's another way of bringing their alumni close together. So I encourage you to think about creating your own networking groups.
I think that's a great idea. And, I love the way you do stuff because people put these big barriers and hurdles to jump over. They're going to start a networking group and they're going to have an agenda and bylaws and all this stuff. You just get people together and you
Right,
keep it simple. Hey, let's meet 6 times a year.
right,
Something that people can easily fit into their schedule. It's not burdensome
right,
and it's there just for people to help one another. So, you're able to accomplish a lot because you don't overcomplicate it.
right. And I keep the cost low. The place our MIT group is currently meeting at is a local tea shop, which is a really nice facility. It's a BYO place. So if the people coming to the meeting want to have a beer or a glass of wine, they have to bring their own. And we treat it as a Dutch street dinner. At the end of the evening, we get the bill and we whack it up among however many people are there. And that typically comes out to like $35 or $37. And we
Yeah.
have it on either a Wednesday or Thursday night from 6 until about quarter to 9. So people don't get home at midnight. It's not a big time consuming thing, but it's a really powerful way to build great relationships.
Yeah, and look, that's 35 people that they're connected to right away in a more meaningful way than some informal connection on LinkedIn where they may never meet the people. So there's a bond there.
Right.
Great.
And it doesn't take me a half an hour to organize one of these meetings. This is not a big time commitment on my part. I send out maybe 2 or 3 emails to a list that MIT has given me, and that takes me almost no time at all. And I don't have to do anything special to prepare for the meetings. The only thing I prepare is a list of the attendees that night with their contact information. I distribute that because I encourage everybody at these meetings to get together individually in between the meetings. That's where this real relationship development takes
Mhm.
place, in one-on-one meetings. So
Yeah.
I can't think of a more powerful tool for people to have than to really be good at this. And a lot of people are intimidated. They feel shy. They
Mhm.
don't like to go to things where there's a lot of strange people that they've never met before. I think being shy and a little introverted can actually be an advantage in terms of networking. Because
A lot
I
of
think,
people like to hear that.
yeah, I think people often interpret somebody who's being quiet as being particularly smart. They must be thinking about things because they're not just rambling like I
Yeah.
am. So I think you can use being shy and a little introverted as an advantage.
Sure.
And people should recognize that almost everybody's uncomfortable meeting new people. So, but if you don't do it, you're just shortchanging yourself. So one of the techniques I encourage people with to get over that is to just start talking with everybody, everywhere, all the time, which is how I came up with the title of my
Yeah.
book. So if you're sitting on a train going someplace, or an airplane, or a bus, start talking to the person next to you. Uh, if you're walking down the street and you come to a traffic light and you see a person next to you who looks interesting, start talking. If you're in a bar or restaurant waiting for somebody, start talking to the other people waiting. Start talking to everybody. So I think this is exactly like weightlifting. And the more you do it, the better your networking muscle becomes.
Yep.
And random networking, there's no risk to it. It's not time consuming. You're not changing anything else about what you're doing. If the other person doesn't respond, it's no big deal.
Yep.
But it's giving you confidence, and it's giving you the ability to quickly get into a conversation. And when you get into a conversation with people, I think you should focus 90% on listening to them. So one of the skills that you need to be a really great networker is you have to have the ability to ask questions. I have a friend in Dallas, Texas, who is a real expert on asking questions. He's written 3 or 4 books on it. So asking questions is something that people should practice.
Mm.
Everybody likes to talk about themselves, so you might as well give them the chance and just ask, questions that they can expand upon. At the end of your little discussion, they're going to think you're smart as heck, and they're going to feel proud that they were able to share their stories and their goals and their challenges with somebody who is interested in them. So you
That's
have
right.
to really dedicate yourself to being sincerely interested in the other people. You can't be a phony baloney at this stuff.
That's right. You've got it. And I think you've been, so good, Jack, at being sincerely interested in other people, their life stories, their challenges, what they do, and they feel that. And then they, of course, open up and start sharing information with you. So, these are very good tips. These are the habits of, highly effective networkers. And, Jack has built his own system and routine. And like he said, you've got to do things that are comfortable for you, but it is a skill. And there's nothing in life that you can do that, provides some level of satisfaction that doesn't also require some skill. And I think these tips Jack's given you are great. So showing sincere interest in the other person, leaning into the conversation, right, Jack? Asking
Right.
questions, listening.
Right.
And you're a
Listening,
great listener.
asking great questions, and your attitude has to be not what I get out of this conversation or this relationship, but how can I add value to you and to your career and to your family and to your organization. So the focus has got to be on the other person.
Hmm. Totally.
When I coach like high school kids or college kids, which I do just as a way to give back, I emphasize that they have to learn to to add value to other people's lives. And I ask them, for example, if you had an opportunity to meet Bill Gates from Microsoft, how would you think you could add value to Bill Gates's life or his career? And they all think there's no way. I said, come on. I said,
Yeah.
everybody likes to hear about a new good Italian restaurant. You don't think Bill Gates would be interested in you telling him what Italian restaurant is your family's favorite, or a great place to get away for a weekend, or a great book to read, or a movie to watch, or golf course to play? There's all kinds of ways to add value to people, both professionally by introducing them to new clients, new outside resources, new advisors, and also add value personally to the person that him or herself and to their family. So, you can find out that somebody has a young kid who's interested in baseball, and you might know of somebody who runs a good baseball camp in the summer for kids. So you got to be looking for opportunities. I equate networking to rock climbing. And when you meet somebody, you're really looking for finger holds, and the finger holds are the common things that you have, that you share. And once you find those common holds, find ways to add value to the person. And they absolutely appreciate it. They appreciate being told a good book to read, or a good movie to see, or good wine to try, you
Hmm.
know, a good Indian or a good Italian restaurant. You know, you don't have to be big time sophisticated in your ways that you can add value to people. Just connecting people with other people is
Yeah.
probably one of the greatest things that you can do for people.
And that is the advantage of building your network. Suddenly you've got all of these connections, you've listened intently, you know enough about the people that what they're interested in, you can make connections that are valuable to both parties.
Yep. And I probably make people connections 10 to 15 times a week. And people really appreciate that. And I always ask them to keep me in the loop about how that new relationship is unfolding so that I can help move it along.
Yeah, tremendous.
So most people don't proactively look for ways to connect other people. And that's probably one of the greatest ways you can add real value to somebody.
Yes. And in my career, when I look at people who've done well in jobs, in companies, or in life, they're not the people who are always saying, what's in it for me? They're the people who sat there and said, what can I do to help these other people? And their focus was literally kind of outside focus, not inward, looking to help people. And, then magic somehow just happens to occur, right?
Yeah. I mean,
So it's a great tip, Jack, that, they've got to be focused on others and they're actually others' needs and helping them, do better.
right. Um, I tell people, it's highly unlikely that you're going to be hit by lightning if you stay in your office all the
Yeah.
time. Not much is going to happen if you're sitting behind your desk. You're going to really churn up activity and opportunities by being out.
Hmm.
And, you got to do that on your schedule that's consistent with your work commitments and your family life or whatever. But you got to be out, meeting people, stirring the pot, building relationships. And it's just a really powerful thing.
Yeah. And I think, habits, doing things in some kind of a routine somehow,
Right.
because you've established great routines that work for you, whether they're breakfast, routines of just, starting up conversations with people, running your own networking groups, staying in touch with people on some frequency. These things matter because then it's not accidental.
Right.
This is deliberate and very informal, but very powerful. And
Yep. Um, I was giving a networking talk at a major company one day, and somebody asked me, "How do I spend my networking time and money?" So I went up to a blackboard and I put together a little grid. I listed all the possible ways I could network: breakfast meetings, lunch meetings, dinner meetings, coffee, going to events, joining groups, whatever. 90% of my effort is breakfast meetings. That's where 90% of the hours are spent.
Hmm.
And 90% of my networking expenses here, which I estimate are about $10,000, uh, are between picking up the tab for breakfast and driving to or from wherever I'm meeting people. So
Hmm.
the two biggest costs are transportation cost and eggs in the morning. And that comes to about $10,000 a year in my case, half of which is the driving expenses. And the ROI on investing that in myself is enormous. You know, I just constantly turn up new opportunities, good things to do. It's astounding.
Yeah. And you have fun doing it.
Well, totally.
Really enjoyable, meeting great people,
Learning,
building relationships. It's fantastic.
learning. A couple of weeks ago, I took my wife up to Quebec for a 3-day weekend, and I reached out to one of the people in my network who is a foodie, and he's been to Quebec many times. I shot him an email. I said, "Hey, Steve, can you suggest some restaurants in Old Quebec that we should try?" And within an hour, I had a list of 8 or 10 restaurants in Quebec, just because I knew where to turn in my network for a resource that was important to me at the
Yeah.
time.
Phenomenal. Yeah, it's just so incredibly powerful. People can network. They could do it better than they do it. They could build habits. They could build routines. I think your experience is great. I highly recommend that everybody pick up Jack's book. You can go to Amazon. I'll put the link, for Jack's book in the footer of this video on YouTube. So you'll be able to get it there. But certainly just type in Jack Killion, Killion. You'll be able to, his book will come up right away. I recommend people get it and do things your own way. Jack, any parting thoughts that you would like to leave this interview with? Just some kind of ideas or things that
Yeah,
people
the
might want to.
I don't think I've talked enough about the importance of networking in terms of really making significant business development changes.
Hmm.
I've used LinkedIn to raise money to start companies. I've used it to raise money to buy companies. I've used my network to find companies to buy or to merge with. And I've done all that stuff. I've
Which is amazing, really, right? When you
oh,
get down to it.
oh,
And that's a big goal and objective, and your network was powerful enough to actually enable that, which is
right,
amazing.
right. I once had a company I sold to a British company. I went on their board, and in 10 years, I mean, in 3 years, we did 10 high-tech acquisitions, half of which I uncovered by networking with the people I knew in the different business sectors that the company was involved in. So I turned up 10 acquisition targets in less than 3 years that were all accomplished by this public company in the UK. So you can set big time goals, and there often is no other real way to accomplish them in a timely, cost effective way.
Yeah.
I can't think of anything I would not try to do by reaching out to my network.
Hmm. And that's another great, great point is that people shouldn't set limitations. Things in life happen through people.
Right.
And having a powerful network opens up many doors, many opportunities. So, it's about possibility thinking. People see networks, in a small way, and you've actually done the big N network,
Right.
which is really kind of a very, very much a fundamental part of living a full life,
Right. Right.
which is amazing.
And it's a way to leverage your own time and capabilities. I mean, none of us can be successful alone. So
Yeah.
when we have something we're trying to accomplish, you know, let's cut the time to do that, and let's do it cost effectively by reaching out to people we know who can help us get there, and people
Yeah.
want to help you get there.
Yeah.
I
Which
want
is just
to
so
get
true.
there. Frank wants to help you get there.
People do want to help others. I mean, I'd say one of the primary reasons for my success is I always cared deeply about the people in my organizations, and I wanted them to succeed, and I wanted to help them.
Yeah.
And I wanted to
You
create
have
an
to help
environment
people.
where they could grow and do better. And as they grew and did better, guess what?
They drag
The
you along.
company did better. The
Right.
organization did better. Everybody benefited. And at the end of the day, caring about others is the spark that just, you know, lightens up so many different connections and avenues. And people need to care about other human beings and then do things for them like you do. And that opens up tremendous possibilities. And before they know it, they'll have a network built their own way, and they'll have a lot of opportunities and possibilities they wouldn't have otherwise. So, Jack, I'd like to thank you for coming on.
It's
I think
great. I
you did
appreciate the
super.
opportunity.
You know, maybe we'll do a follow-up interview at some point.
That'd be great.
And certainly, I would say the parting wisdom here is network all the time with everybody, everywhere, care about others, and just let that network unfold and grow around you. So,
Yeah.
Jack, thank you for your time. It was fascinating. And I think you've added a lot of value to our listeners. Thank you,
Well,
buddy.
thanks for the opportunity, huh?
Yeah, take
Cheers.
care.